Hello everyone, my name is Jim Rasmussen and I want to welcome all of you for joining us today for our webinar, Responsive E-Learning Development and the Challenges and Considerations that went into that. So again, my name is, as you'll see on the slides, my name is Jim Rasmussen and I run the Americas for Upside Learning. And I'll be the host and co-presenter for today's session. But before we get started, please note that you'll be receiving a recording of today's webinar via email. And certainly, please feel free to ask us any questions as we go through today. And we'll try to get to most of them. And the ones that we can't, we'll certainly follow up via email. But hopefully, we'll get to most of them. So, again, before we jump in, let's just do a quick introduction of Upside Learning. Now, for the past 10 years, we've been helping organizations in a variety of industries and sizes to improve their performance through our learning technology solutions. And as you can see from the map here, Upside's world headquarters are in India, and we have offices and clients in the US, UK, Asia Pacific, Middle East, North Africa, and other countries as well, and of course U.S., including North America, because certainly we're working a lot in Canada as well. So our solutions, just a quick look at that, include content development, and it's custom e-learning and m-learning, mobile learning apps. We have a platform for managing mobile learning called Upside to Go. And very highly acclaimed within the industry, our Upside LMS. And then we've got a partner here in the U.S. called Motto, and we have catalog courses available there as well. So in terms of awards, we've been recognized and awarded by Brandon Hall, TrainingIndustry.com, Deloitte, Red Herring, and then recently in 2013 we won the Best E-Learning Team of the Year from eLearning Age. So without further ado, let's move forward into the webinar. And there's, of course, myself. And joining me today will be Ashutosh Joshi, and he is our Senior Business Development Manager. I work very closely with him, and he's very involved in supporting North America and very knowledgeable on responsive learning as well as on FRED, which we'll introduce just a little bit later. Okay, so let's get into a poll. We could. Our first poll will have, can't recall, I think it's 2, possibly 3. I think it's 2 polls today. So how many, we're talking about devices today. How many devices do you use in a day? And just go ahead and take a little time to respond to that. When we get to 80% here, we'll close it down. Okay. Okay, very interesting. Okay, so it is not surprising to us, and we're talking with organizations all the time about responsive learning and how they're using it and what the realities of their organization are. Almost 50% that responded here are using more than three or more devices in a day. So not surprising at all. It really aligns with what we've been seeing out there. Okay, so let's move forward. And we'll go right into another poll. And we're going to talk about operating systems. So, here's another area where we've seen some interesting things and changes, some dynamics. So go ahead and go ahead and jump in and share your thoughts on that as well. You know, what operating system or systems do your devices use? Okay. Wow. Very, very interesting. Okay. Well, thank you for thanks for jumping in and sharing that. We're seeing actually iOS, which of course is Apple, eclipsed in this case by Windows, and then yeah, a lot more Windows, and that's something it definitely reflects the trends we're seeing as well. And then just behind iOS, just a little bit, is the Android, and yeah, it's an interesting mix, and it definitely supports as we think about our roadmap and things like that. It definitely supports the efforts that we're involved in developmentally in terms of design and how we look at the market and respond to needs out there. So, you know, thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's move forward. Okay, the agenda. Let's really get to it here now. Of course, we're going to talk about the multi-device world, the dynamics of that, you know, what we're seeing, and of course, why responsive e-learning, you know, what's driving that, and of course, what is it? For those that aren't aware, we're hoping to add to your knowledge today, and then of course the challenges and key considerations that Upside Learning went through as we really have been focusing on this a great deal in the past year, and just sharing some of the things that we ran into, and hopefully that will be a benefit for folks that are on today. And then of course Fred, our framework for responsive e-learning development, and the evolution, the birth and the evolution of Fred. So we want to share all that with you today. We can move forward. Okay. Take a quick snapshot of the multi-device world out there, and as you might imagine, we're seeing, of course, 91% cell phone, well over half smartphone. Tablet is growing, and interestingly, 25% use only mobile to access the internet, and it'll be interesting to watch that number as well as all of these, but maybe that one in particular, that one may continue to inch up, would be perhaps our thoughts. So interesting data there. Let's move forward. Okay, so what is responsive? And essentially it's learning and performance support interventions that are delivered from one source, very important concept, a single source, on multiple devices, and with you know, really no loss of content, you know, maintaining that content integrity. And the content responds to or molds itself, adapts to a particular device's dimensions, and rearranges itself accordingly, so that the content changes its form or it gets layered where required to maintain a very strong user experience, and that's the ultimate. You know, how well can it play on, regardless of what device, the content's still there, and regardless of how folks are consuming it, that they're going to have a great experience. Okay, so just a couple questions to think about, and feel free to reach out. You know, again, with questions, we do want to encourage that. Are you building responsive learning already, e-learning? Are you planning to, or would you like to? And you know, some thoughts on inevitability there. That's the course we're actually seeing more and more of that. I think that'll continue to happen. Okay. So again, as we mentioned, you know, really it's regardless of how you're consuming it, whether even on desktop, of course, but then how content gets repurposed, you know, from one single design, or done once rather, whether it's on tablet, whether it's on smartphone, and whether regardless of what kind of smartphone, you know, it has to respond well and work well. A few more questions to consider. You know, when you think about responsive, what kind of e-learning might it suit best? And there's different theories out there as to whether going through a course on a cell phone is a quality learning experience. We found that chunked out learning is best there, and you know, true learning is best on a desktop or on a tablet, you know, a full course, so to speak. But we can get more into that a little bit later. And do you think potentially responsive design can make that better? Okay, so why responsive e-learning? As you can see the list here, but there are two key drivers. You know, you've got an increasingly mobile workforce that requires and demands flexibility, convenience, and they expect whatever content they might need. You know, if you're going to go down this path, the content's got to be available at the point of need or time of interest. And you know, and obviously it just has to plain work, but it has to, you know, really it's really an on-demand world out there. And then of course the changing computer trend from PCs to mobile devices, laptops, tablets, smartphones, you know, and a variety of this is a big one, a variety of different operating systems, different manufacturers, and a vast variety of sizes rather, and truly one size no longer fits all. So, you know, and the reality out there is organizations are adapting BYOD, bring your own device, policies, and they're really, most aren't going to be purchasing or you know, be able to provide these types of things. So it's really whatever device someone enters the workplace with, and adding to that variety of devices on which e-learning needs to be supported. That's how it's going to be. It's getting consumed more and more. Okay. Let's go forward. Okay. So what's the solution to that? And in the case of Upside Learning, our solution is FRED, Framework for Responsive E-Learning Development. So we're going to take you on that journey today, and you know, along the way provide some, we believe, some insights that'll be of value to folks that are thinking about responsive learning, that are developing it actually, and you know, again, feel free to reach out with questions, and we'll respond accordingly. So yeah, at this point, I'll hand it off to my colleague Ash Joshi, and let him take you through for a while. We're also, I didn't mention, we're also going to do a brief demo of FRED a little bit later, so stick around. There's the teaser. Go ahead, Ash.
Thanks, James. Thanks for getting us up to the speed on responsive e-learning design and development. So what we want to do and share is, you know,
Ash, are you on mute?
Hello? No. Hello, can you hear me?
I think you're on mute, Ash.
Hello. Yeah. So I'm sorry, guys, for the technical glitches. So what we are going to talk about is, you know, some of the challenges we faced when we were working with responsive e-learning design. So what we, while we were working on this, we a solution came out is, we created a framework. We call it FRED, Framework for Responsive E-Learning Design and Development. During the development of FRED, we discovered several key considerations, and we just thought that we'll share those experiences with you and aspects of possibility to consider when you are creating and deciding on creating responsive e-learning. We'll talk about browser OS device combinations, usability, content display, and the treatment. The first and foremost challenge, quite simple as you could see. There are so many devices out there, and when you're designing responsive, it has to work on all devices, all different combinations. So one of the way to look at it is we need to narrow it down to some of the specific devices and target devices we want our responsive design to work on, or maybe we try and identify few primary device configurations on which we will be, or we would want this to work on. Here's an example. If you see both these screens, the white box, which is misaligned and on i7 and works better on higher browser. What it also does, because it is a hotspot too, it kind of creates a problem when while working with these hotspots and everything. So we thought how we take care of this, and how we work with this. So we found out when we are working with a responsive e-learning design, we need to test it on real live devices. It cannot be, we worked on simulators and emulators to make sure that it works well. It did to a certain extent, but then we realized there were places, there were combinations which were still not working on, so we had to resort to kind of go into a place where we tested everything on real devices, which eventually takes a little longer. It is complex, and it makes it a little costlier as compared to standard e-learning, flash-based or desktops and laptops which we have been doing. Because again, going back to is, it needs to work on all devices, and that's why it needs to be tested on real devices based on the experience we had working with simulators and emulators. To make sure and to let the user know, we thought of how we can let a user know that what kind of experience they might have. We thought of bringing in a kind of a check where we tell the user what device configuration they are on. We also thought of we could show this as a warning to a user that you're not on an HTML5 supported browser and you might not get the best of the experience. So and to provide the best of the experience, on both the device, both the combinations, we actually created certain templates. As you would see in this example, this is a carousel kind of a template. On an HTML5 supported browser, you get to see the depth, and it gives a real carousel kind of an interactivity. But on a browser which does not support HTML5, it becomes like a click through kind of an interactivity where you click on each slide, it takes you to a next slide. But with the framework, we were able to solve this issue in terms of how to cater to different device types and browser OS combinations. So if you are on a browser which supports HTML5, if you're not on a browser which supports HTML5, it should still give a nice experience to the user. Now, let's move on to our next challenge, which is the usability. And while we were thinking about this, two things came out. That all the mobile devices, especially mobile phones and tablet devices, which everyone is using nowadays, are touch friendly. So we've had to ensure that they can use, make maximum uses of the device capabilities. That is, the touch capabilities, as well as we saw on the previous screen, it should also work on devices or browsers where it does not support HTML5. Now, with touch devices, there are a couple of possibilities for navigation as well. So we can have within page in navigation, like we see in this case, I can move from within an interactivity from first tab to another to the next one, as well as if we want to use gestural navigation to move from one page to another. So we thought about it, and then we kind of introduced that like two finger navigation, or swipe kind of feature if we are moving from one device to one page to another, whereas if we are on the same page moving between different tabs, we can use one finger navigation as well. Now this is about page level navigation, so which we were able to find a solution for. There's a global navigation as well. Now you have e-learning. In e-learning courses, you have global menus like next, back button, then menus to move from one page to another. So these work well on larger devices, maybe a desktop or a laptop, maybe in a landscape mode, or a tablet on a landscape mode. But on a smaller devices, how do we present these different navigation? Most of it, do we shift it, move it, layer it differently? So what we did, we thought of a solution where we grouped different navigation, layered it differently. So as you could see in this image, on a smaller devices, the global navigation automatically moves to the top, like next and back button. And what we also did is the menus and all, we grouped them together under one section. So if you want to move from one page or to another using a menu, so you can click on it and it opens a drop down on a smaller device. You can click on any of these pages and move from one section to another. You can also have access to different referenceable element or resources and glossaries and transcripts and all. For most of the mobile phones and tablet devices, where you have controls to have manage audio and things, so you might find, or what we did on a smaller one or smaller these devices is we don't have audio controls within the course, which can always be controlled through the audio control given on the device. So because because of the difference in the mouse and touch-based interactions, responsive e-learning also requires special attention to interactivity, instructions which we have on screen. It can either be device neutral, we can have device appropriate, or a task-based. Other words, if we say, we could control learner instructions either through our writing or through our programming, as you would see in this example. So for device appropriate instructions, these were easiest to write, but we decided to go in for task-based instructions. So writing device neutral or task-based instructions can sometimes be, these can be challenging at times, especially where interactivities are used just to structure and display maybe an introductory or general content or interaction to a module or a concept. The last point, in terms of usability, we kept coming back to, text readability, because this is responsive, single source. This needs to work well on all devices, be it a desktop or a laptop or a small or large device. So, what we thought and, worked with and finally found out that, font size of 16 pixels, it seems really right, gave good readability, and to make sure that it does, we actually kept all different sizes of devices next to each other and tested it. We have also built in, we have also built-in accessibility where users can actually go and change contrast and all. Mostly you would see these accessibility features are already built in most of these devices. However, when you're working with device, these would not necessarily impact the e-learning or the responsive module when someone is accessing. So that's where we also brought in some of those accessibility features where one can change text colors, make it high contrast, and things like that. Oops, I'm sorry. Now moving on to how do we third area, which is how do we display the content and how do we make it touch responsive. So when we are designing responsive e-learning, and through our experience while we are designing the thread as well, we found out that treatment of the content is transformed based on the device size you're working on, and sometimes based on the browser too. So as an instructional designer, and which plays a very large and very important part of designing a responsive e-learning module or responsive content. So so an instructional designer, they need to think up on how best they can alter the treatment of a content for different screen sizes. So as you would see in this example, the process on a larger screen is presented differently, but when we are moving onto a smaller screen, we still want to make sure that arrows point in right direction, and it doesn't distort and it doesn't give the wrong information. So that's what, again, I'm going back to, is instructional design. While you're writing a storyboard or creating an instructional design document, it is very important to think about it and write storyboards, and instructional designer needs to write storyboards accordingly. As well as you need to make sure that the content adjusts itself correctly for larger and smaller screen, makes the best possible uses of available screen area as well. In Thread, what we have done is we have created set of templates which an instructional designer can also work with, and define how the content is presented on different screen sizes. When we are rearranging content, we also need to be careful, about handling images and media. It could be like, would it be okay if we just keep reducing the image size, or do we need to come with certain alternatives? There are a couple of options we were able to identify here. The first option was to scale images down and possibly not to display it below a particular size, as you could see in this example. The second option, we thought of, we can reduce the image by cropping, so display size remains constant. And the third option is combination of both these two. So depending on what content we are dealing with, how important the images are, at places we might do away with images, at places we might just reduce the size of the images and crop them, or use the combination of both these two. And going back to what I said, we have identified and created certain templates, which also makes it easy for this, an instructional designer when they're working with the content. So where they can decide which type of template can be used for specific type of content, and accordingly they can decide whether they need to show the media, images and all, or they can do away with images, or they need to crop and make it smaller for a smaller screen. Like we mentioned, transforming the content treatment based on the target display area. The fact is, the HTML technology is used for developing responsive e-learning. Can have certain restrictions on how you treat the content too. So we were to work on it while we were working and finding, working around these challenges. We need to find alternatives. So there are a couple of places, we felt our content demanded the creation of animated story and, change to present some of the concepts, some of the key principles, and so for that, like in this case, you would see, to present this scenario with key principles, we wanted to use a video, and again, in HTML5, you have certain challenges on how the video would work. So what we decided is, we went ahead, created those into Flash, and imported those into HTML templates. And while we are creating these videos, we always kept in mind that it needs to play on different device sizes. While we are transforming the content treatment for smaller devices, one of the aspects we have to keep in mind is how we are layering different interactivities for smaller device sizes to ensure that navigation did not get too integrated or on the smaller displays. This meant that while the first level of chunking was done for desktop, there was also additional level of chunking. So chunking and organizational content could be looked into different ways, like whether we need to actually have complex simulations and technical diagrams, and while we are working with that, how do we present them on a smaller screen? How do we present different animated stories like we saw on the previous slide as well, where we had to think of how we can create those stories, how we can pull them into the responsive module, and how we present them on different small and larger devices. These all type of content can be difficult, though it is not impossible to present effectively on small device. So while we work on a responsive design, as part of content analysis, it is very important for us to be able to identify such content and maybe devise alternative approaches, so that we can question, and we need to question ourselves whether we need to actually include that type of content on a mobile device or not. How do we bring in those kind of content, whether we have all application simulations doing responsively or not. So here I would like to pull you in, Jim, based on your interactions with clients, what kind of content and what kind of things they want to present responsibly and deliver on to their users.
Yeah, it's a great question, Ash. Thanks. It's kind of a little bit of both, but really the biggest the biggest area that we're seeing it has to do with performance support, and initially the big breakthrough for mobile learning has been a lot within sales organizations, and they're often far-flung that need content quickly. It needs to be very dynamic. It needs to be just in time. All of those buzzwords that are actually very, very accurate representation of their world. So we're seeing a lot of the content taking the form of performance support, mobile flashcards, things like that, and then certainly a lot of extending the blend. There's another phrase, but again, apropos in that I don't believe Classroom is going to completely ever go away, but it's really just extending that blend, but in a more chunked out, typically a more chunked out format, particularly on smaller devices. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the larger, the big module learning, or the larger module learning is typically best on a tablet or on a desktop, and that's kind of our Upside's position on that. But again, just to reiterate, it's more the chunking things down, and certainly video, but again, smaller doses of learning and performance support to extend that blend from the classroom.
Thanks, Tim. That's good to hear, because one of the things we always suggest, when you're designing anything for a smaller device, is it should not necessarily be a large 30-40 minutes module. It is better, as Jim said, based on his experience, if it is smaller, more of a performance support, chunked out, or small snippets and all, which can be accessed by a user, and which is easy to carry, download, and access wherever they are, even on a low bandwidth networks. So as Jim mentioned, we would like to show you one of the sample modules which we designed internally using Fred, and show you how it works on different device sizes. So I'm launching a small module, and so as you would see, we have designed about 22 to 25 different templates, and when we are working with our clients and working with different types of content, we'll keep adding to that. But when we launch a module, and when we talk about making it true responsive, which works on all different device sizes, so this is maybe this could be a landscape view on a tablet, 10-inch tablet, or a normal view on a desktop or a laptop. And as you would see, the menus and everything are pretty standard type of menus, which work on all larger device sizes. But if you're accessing the same content on a smaller device, maybe a smartphone, and that's where we had to decide whether we crop the image, whether we resize the image, whether we remove the image. So depending on the content type, where if image is not, or the media is not really needed or important, and that's more of an instructional design call, you might just do away with that media. Again, you will not see the audio controls, because on a touch-friendly devices or mobile phones, you always have audio controls with you. To make sure users are able to access, we have brought in and presented menus differently. So I can move on to any page from here. I can access other elements like glossaries and transcripts, or exit my module directly from here. Again, this is a similar type of page where if I go back to a larger screen, there are some images, some media we are using here, some images we are using here. On a smaller screen, again, and instructional designers thought images are not necessarily needed. These are all audio driven pages. You might not be able to hear the audio on this, but these are all audio driven pages. This was one of the examples or screenshots we saw in our presentation. So this is a carousel kind of an image. For non-HTML5 supported devices and browsers, this will work as like click and next kind of an image or interactivity, sorry. And for a smaller screens, we change it to, again, click and reveal kind of interactivity. So we are not necessarily doing away with those interactivities or animations where those are needed. We just present them differently, moving from a smaller device, so larger device to smaller and vice versa. Now this is an audio-based scenario where there are multiple scenarios which can be presented. As you saw on a smaller device, it's a smaller video but still presents itself and fits itself well for that screen size. I might, on a larger screen, it is presented differently. So since this is a information security course, we went ahead, created some scenarios, like about the information security, how you make sure of what wrong things can happen with you. So if I go back for a smaller screen, as you would see, we are not necessarily doing away with media again here. So video is an important part of this entire scenario. So we'll still keep those video. We'll just present them differently. This is again another scenario for a smaller screen or a mobile phone kind of a screen. It gives you a scroll. But for a larger screen, it is a different type of presentation. We also have knowledge checks and quizzes as part of the module we have created, so you can create knowledge checks. Again, these also need to fit for all screen sizes. So while we're designing these templates, we are working with these ones. Going back to one of the challenge we faced is, we tried these with simulators and emulators, and then when we actually ran these on actual devices, we still found that some of them was not perfectly fitting. So one of the big challenge, which also makes testing very extensive and maybe sometimes expensive, we are targeting too many devices, that we actually had to bring in those devices, test all of these on actual devices to make sure it is working. Here's another interactivity. Again, for a smaller screen, it would look like this, where you will have an example presented differently. This is again a hotspot kind of an interactivity with some questions as part of it. Might not be the best interactivity, maybe if we are using it for mobile phones, but it fits well on a smaller one as well. So you need to, click on one of these hotspots, answer some of the questions, whether you feel this is safe or not. And if we look at on a smaller screen very quickly, it presents itself a little differently. So at the end, you can have quizzes, and while I'm here, the framework is designed in a way that it can be SCORM 1.2, 2004, AICC, or even tin can compliance. So depending on how you want to track it, whichever compliance is the preferred, we can make it work for you for that compliance. Again, currently, we have for now kept away with some of the questions like drag and drop and all. They sometimes not necessarily work really well on a smaller screen device types. So to make sure that we present content properly and correctly on all device sizes, we have currently primarily used like multiple choice and multiple response type questions. But again, depending on if we have they decided a device type, if those support other question types, and again those medias and things which we have used, those can also be, we can also use them, group them with questions, present a media, ask question on that, maybe a video, and then ask a question on that. So all that can also be done. So this is how we have designed the framework, and how this is how it kind of works on all device sizes. I'll move back to presentation, where we'll quickly talk about some of the features and functions. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about that. I'm sorry, guys. It's kind of really weird. So here, I'll hand it over to Jim, and where we'll talk about and we'll take turns if needed in terms of what features and functions we have Fred offers, and what kind of advantages this brings to table.
Mm-hmm. Can we pull up the slide? Thanks, Ash. Can we pull up the slide for that, please?
I'm sorry.
No worries.
Well, it's already showing.
Okay, there we go. The one before that.
Yep. Come on.
Okay, there we go. Thanks, Ash. I hope that was helpful for folks out there to get more insight and get some kind of a little bit of live ammo, if you will, around just how Fred operates and certainly the background on it. So hopefully that was helpful. And Ash touched on a number of these pieces here. Key features for Fred, and as you can see, multi-device support, and I know there's a question on that. We're researching that, and we'll be answering that shortly. And as you can see, multi-delivery options, the responsive menu, social media, those types of things, accessibility, and all that stuff. So certainly we've had to think a lot about and stay current with learning standards, compliance, and we've got a number of templates. It's well over 20 now. I can actually track down the actual number for folks that are interested in that, and it obviously makes that a lot easier to work with clients in developing, using Fred to develop content for organizations out there, and of course accessibility support. Okay. All right. So as we've again touched on a number of these, but just to finish up on Fred itself within the overall framework, responsive is a much bigger topic than just Fred. But again, that's really been our experience is how we've responded to, if you will, to the market's need for dynamic learning that repurposes on different devices, and it only needs to be done once. And that's really one of the biggest advantages. It delivers the same or similar content across multiple devices ensures a consistent and complete user experience. And that's really what is the most important piece to take away, I think, here. And also, it's a reusable or repurposable framework within this library of 20 plus templates, and it just makes it a lot more efficient, the development process. You don't have to go back and reinvent the wheel and do it again. It's there. You can really make tweaks as you go, and that's really the value of Fred, within the overall responsive concept. So. Okay, so I know that we're still fielding questions, and so feel free to share those with us. We actually finished up a little quicker than we thought here, but why don't we go to that last page? So this is the concept, the need for responsive e-learning development out there is one that we continue to hear a lot about, and we're supporting that on a number of levels. And feel free to get our contact information here, and if you have questions, if you have a desire to spend more time on Fred itself and seeing some samples of our work beyond what we've showed today, and obviously we can have a dialogue with you about what your needs are, what your requirements are, and share our insights and how we can potentially support you in that regard. So, and certainly do a deeper dive on just Fred. And we've had some folks that have reached out to us already and shared that they in fact want to better understand how it works. So go ahead, Ash.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt him, but there are a couple of questions we have. We can pick those since we have time, and feel free to send any questions you have. We can, as Jim said, we can still answer some of those here. One of the questions is about whether Fred is a web-based software, or do we install. This is more of a responsive framework which we have designed, which we use to develop content for our clients. So it's not any software or any tool which you can use. You still need to have some level of technical expertise to work with Fred, which I hope answers other question too. When someone has asked about what kind of skill sets you need. So this is more of like you need to have HTML, XML kind of a format, the format to work with Fred. But just to mention, this is not a tool which we are in the market to sell. As I mentioned earlier, we are using it to help our client to fasten up the process of designing responsive e-learning. Another question is on how the content can be localized. Fred has been designed keeping that in mind. It supports double byte characters. It supports all European languages, and as we have ourselves worked with many projects in past where we had to help our client translate some of the courses, and we have done more than I think 45-50 languages. So we have had challenges. We have faced those challenges in the past. So when we are designing Fred, we kept that in mind, and we designed Fred accordingly so that it supports all different types of languages, including Asian, South Arabic, or any European languages too. Yep. Someone has asked, will it support Brazilian Portuguese? Yes, it will. Someone has. There have been a couple of questions going on around the cost of the Fred. I would like to reiterate, this is not a tool which is there in the market to sell. We use it to to develop the content for our clients using this tool based on their needs. Now, feel free to type in if you have any other questions before, we have a few more minutes left. We can field some more before we, someone will ask for our Skype contact. We'll surely send our Skype contact to your email. We can talk over phone or Skype too. So, any other questions before we end our webinar today?
There's a few that we're checking on. So we're if we don't get confirmation on those questions, we'll reach back out to you and respond accordingly.
Yep. So there's one more, which is on repurpose of various screen sizes. So our templates have been designed accordingly, and they have been tested on different devices. So from the technical point of view, it works that way. Another one of the challenge which we had to work with is how you design your storyboards or instructional design. So that would depend. You will get a webinar recording. So everyone, just to reiterate, there's a question on that. So you'll get a recording of this webinar or your email, so you can always access to that.
And also, yes, of course, we can send the presentation out.
Yep.
If that hasn't been mentioned.
Again, do we design multiple times? No. This is single source which works for all devices on all screen sizes too.
And then I answered this in the chat, but I want to make sure it's clear. And again, if Ash, you covered this, my apologies. But as far as cost of development, we really need to understand the content involved. And we've signed a lot of NDAs, and we're happy to do that, but we really need to analyze the content, have a clearer understanding specifically of how you want, what kind of treatment or approach that you're looking for, and we can give you some very good insight around cost for developing content for a particular organization. So feel free to reach out to us individually. Okay. Well, if there's no other questions beyond ones that we're researching for you, we will respond. We'll give it another minute or so and move forward. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. Ash and I have enjoyed presenting this to you, and again, our contact information is there. Please feel free to email either of us, and again, we'll also follow up with our Skype addresses as well. So we'll be happy to have conversations with anyone. So again, we appreciate your time today. And look forward to continuing to work on responsive development, and hope to have the opportunity to connect with a lot of you. And we blog about this a lot as well. So as you can see our blog address on our web page there. Feel free to check us out. Thanks again for everyone's time. Take care.